Oh, wow. Yeah, so, fair use at some point. It had to happen at some point. We had to start discussing this, right? So before we start this video, I would just like to point out some things here and just some quick reminders, right? So Deuteronomy 11:16. Be careful, or you will be enticed to turn away and worship other gods and bow down to them. Joshua 23:6-7. Be ye therefore very courageous to keep and to do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, that ye turn not aside therefrom to the right hand or to the left, that ye come not among these nations, these that remain among you, neither make mention of the name of their gods, nor cause any to swear by them, neither serve them nor bow yourselves unto them. The Ten Commandments. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images. And remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Give thanks to the Creator. Give thanks for the breath of life. Give thanks for this moment. And welcome back. I'm glad you're here to continue the journey with me. First of all, blessings to Drop Nation. Continuing to inspire and learn and grow and unite. And free our minds, free ourselves. Reclaim. And it says here, nescience, from the Latin verb nesciere, to not know, because knowledge was absent or unattainable. And then it says ignorance, from the Latin verb ignorare, to not know even though necessary information is present, because the information has been willfully refused or disregarded. And it's very simple. Which one do you fall under? Yeah, so this is going to be a very, very interesting video. It's going to be very touchy for most of you, but it's time that we open our mind. We know we've heard this before. All the stuff I'm going to read here, because this is just records I'm reading from. This is information that's available to all of us. It's part of history. I'm getting this information from their sources. I'm hoping that maybe we can let our ego and personal beliefs aside just for a bit and just open our hearts and mind to the possibility that we may have been led away from certain truths, certain laws. We are in desperate times now, and this message is not for everybody, but a chosen few. And if you have the blessing to understand, then I'm glad you were here to watch this. So here we go. So we're going to be talking about Thoth. He's going to be one of the main subjects in this video, and all his different forms, and where he has infiltrated, where he has been in history, and how does he relate to the creation of Christianity and Jesus, and also the creation of Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. So who is Thoth? So let's read here, Wikipedia. Thoth, from Egyptian Duuti, perhaps pronounced Dihauti, depending on the phonological interpretation of Egyptians and emphatic consonants, was one of the deities of the Egyptian pantheon. In art, he was often depicted as a man with the head of an ibis, very important, or a baboon. Animals sacred. His counterpart was Sheshat and his wife was Mat. Thoth's chief temple was located in the city of Qum. Qum, remember that, Qum, later called Hermopolis, remember that, during the Greco-Roman era, in reference to him through the Greeks' interpretation that he was the same as their god, Hermes, very important, and Shimonean in the Coptic rendering, and was partially destroyed in 1826 CE. In that city, he led Ogdod, pantheon of 8 principal deities. He also had numerous shrines within the cities of Abydos, Hesert Urid, Perab, Repkui, Taur, Seb, Hat, Selket, Tamsiz, Anchamutet, Ba, Amenheriab, and Takens. Thoth played many vital and prominent roles in Egyptian mythology, such as maintaining the universe and being one of the 2 deities, the other being Mat, who stood on either side of Ra's boat. In the later history of ancient Egypt, Thoth became heavily associated with the arbitration of godly disputes, the arts of magic, the system of writing, the development of science, and the judgment of the dead. And we're just going to read a little bit more about Thoth here. So it says, continuing, Thoth was originally a moon god. The moon not only provides light at night, allowing time to still be measured without the sun, but its phases and prominence gave it significant importance in early astrology and astronomy. The cycles of the moon also organized much of Egyptian society's rituals and events, both civil and religious. Consequently, Thoth gradually became seen as a god of wisdom and magic, and the measurement and regulation of events and time. The regulation of events and time, very important right there. He was thus said to be the secretary and counselor of the sun god Ra. So he was like his second-hand man, right? He's doing everything for him, his secretary, right? And with Mat, truth, order, stood next to Ra on the nightly voyage across the sky. Thoth became credited by the ancient Egyptians as the inventor of writing, and was also considered to have been the scribe of the underworld. And the moon became occasionally considered a separate entity, now that Thoth had less association with it and more with wisdom. For this reason, Thoth was universally worshipped by ancient Egyptian scribes. Many scribes had painting or picture of Thoth in their office. Likewise, one of the symbols for scribes was that of the ibis. Now, we're gonna go deep here, right? We're gonna go very deep, but we're gonna stay hijack free, right? And we're gonna take out as many babies as we can, right? We're gonna put all this together, and we're gonna just, stay on that water frequency, So, first, this is the emerald tablets we're gonna start talking about, right? As it says here, the emerald tablets of Thoth, the Atlantean. And you can find the PDF online. You can read along if you like. I'm just gonna pull out certain parts of it. I'm gonna also use other books as well, other sources, and we're gonna link Thoth to all this. Alright, so you think this is some online fairy tale somebody just uploaded and wrote? So, as it says here in Wikipedia, says here, the Emerald Tablet, also known as the Smaragdine Table or Tabula Smaragdina, is a compact or cryptic piece of Hermetica, right? Important word right there. Reputed to contain the secret of the prima materia and its transmutation. You hear this? It was highly regarded by European alchemists, as the foundation of their art and its Hermetic tradition. This is where it started, the whole Hermetic tradition. If you know what that's about. The original source of the Emerald Tablet is unknown, right? They tell us it's unknown, but we know Thoth wrote it, right? We're gonna show you. And what he says, although Hermes Trismegistus is the author named in the text, and again Hermes, we read earlier about Thoth, is also known as Hermes in Greek, so it's the same person. You're gonna hear that back and forth a lot, so don't get confused. Its first known appearance in a book written in Arabic between the 6th and 8th centuries. Very important again, Arabic. Its first sources in Arabic. Why Arabic? We'll see that later. The text was first translated into Latin in the 12th century. Numerous translations, interpretations, and commentaries followed. The layers of meaning in the Emerald Tablet have been associated with the creation of the Philosopher's Stone. Philosopher's Stone, just like the Kaaba has a stone, right, in Mecca. Laboratory experimentation, phase transition, the alchemical magnus opus, the ancient classical element system, and the correspondence between macrocosm and microcosm. Alright, so this ain't no joke, alright? I didn't, nowhere in here said this is fake. Alright, so this is considered a historical document or a tablet, whatever they want to call it, right? So let's go right into the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, right? The Atlantean. Again, I'm just going to pick out certain things that basically are going to help with the topic of this video. And the tablet starts out like this right away. I, Thoth, the Atlantean, master of mysteries, keeper of records, mighty king, magician, living from generation to generation, being about to pass into the halls of Amenti, set down for the guidance of those that are to come after, these records of the mighty wisdom of great Atlantis. And Thoth continues, chosen was I from the sons of men, taught by the dweller so that his purpose might be fulfilled. The dweller, who is that? Purpose is yet unborn in the womb of time. So he's saying that, you know, his plans is going to go beyond, you know, his present time to the future or whatever time, you know, like there's no boundaries, like, you know. Long ages I dwelled in the temple, learning ever and yet ever more wisdom, until I too approached the light emitted from the great fire. Light and great fire taught me he path to Amenti, the underworld. Okay, keyword underworld, where the great kings sit upon the throne of might. Deep I bowed in homage before the lords of life, the lords, right, of life, and the lords of death. So these lord things in angelic seem to be titles. These names like God, gods, lords, you know, these are titles. Again, let's continue. Receiving as my gift the key of life. Free was I of the halls of Amenti, bound not by death to the circle of life. Far to the stars I journeyed until space and time became as naught. Gradually from the kingdoms of Atlantis passed waves of consciousness that had been one with me, only to be replaced by spawn of a lower star. A lower star. In obedience to the law, the word of the master grew into flower. Downward into the darkness turned the thoughts of the Atlanteans, until at last in the wrath arose from his Aquanti, the dweller, and says this word has no English equivalent. It means a state of detachment. Okay, detach yourself from something, from order, maybe, quite possibly. And it continues, speaking the word, calling the power. Deep in the earth's heart, the sons of Amenti heard, and hearing, directing and changing of the flower of fire that burns eternally, changing and shifting, using the logos, key word here, remember the word logos, until that great fire changed its direction. Alright, so we're going to start talking about the sinking of Atlantis. He's going to start talking about this part right now, so here goes. Over the world then broke the great waters, drowning and sinking, changing earth's balance, until only the temple of light was left, standing on the great mountain on Undal, still rising out of the water. Some there were who were living, saved from the rush of the fountains. Called to me then the master, saying, Gather ye together, my people, take them by the arts ye have learned afar across the waters, until ye reach the land of the hairy barbarians, dwelling in caves of the desert. Follow there the plan that ye know of. So they're saying, go across the great waters, right? Listen to this. They're saying, go where the hairy barbarians are. Right? Hairy barbarians, Barbaria. Barbaria was known as, you know, a lot of the parts of northern Africa was called Tartaria. Barbaria sounds very similar. And it says, dwelling in the caves of the desert. There is a lot of desert that way, right? So let's continue. Gathered I then my people and entered the great ship of the master. Upward we rose into the morning. Dark beneath us lay the temple. Suddenly over it rose the waters, vanished from the earth until the time appointed was the great temple. So they're seeing, they got on this kind of ship. Somehow they're looking down, right? I don't know if they're flying. I don't know. You tell me. But they're looking down. They see the temple getting covered by the waters. It's gone, right? It's vanished from the earth. All right. So now they're on a ship. Let's continue. It says, fast we fled toward the sun of the morning. Right? What does that mean? That means they went towards the east, because that's where the sun rises, right? The sun of the morning, right? So if they're in the Atlantic, like Plato said, the Atlantic Ocean, then they're going towards Africa or that side, right? Until beneath us lay the land of the children of Cam. All right, the children of Cam, or Ham, right? Cam. And you saw that Thoth had a temple in the city of Kum, or Cam. Let's continue. Raging, they came with cudgels and spears, lifted in anger, seeking to slay and utterly destroy the sons of Atlantis. So they came attacking the children of Cam, like, who's this people in this ship, and who's these weird people from Atlantis, right? So they're shooting them, right? So look what Thoth did to them, right? It says, then raised I my staff and directed a ray of vibration, striking them still in their tracks as fragments of stone on the mountain. So he did some kind of technology, some kind of weapon of vibration. Sounds like some sound energy, right? Like the police used the sound thing, right? Frequency. Striking them still in their tracks as fragments of stone of the mountain. So they were like frozen, they couldn't move. Then he says, then spoke I to them in words of calm and peaceful, telling them of the might of Atlantis. So once he had them in a trance, or in a vibration where they can't even move, they have to pay attention, or they're afraid, right? He spoke to them calm and peacefully, like putting a spell on them, right? Tricking them, saying, we were children of the sun and its messengers. Cowed I them by my display of magic science, until at my feet they groveled when I released them. So it says cowed, like he, made them become afraid, like made them like, vibrate low. They were afraid of him, and because of his display of the magic science, his weapon, right? His magic science. Again, Thoth was known for magic science, so was Hermes, and we're going to continue to see that as well. Magic science, alchemy. All right, and credit to Thoth and Hermes. So as you can see, it seems like he went over towards Egypt and took over. Atlantis sank, and they went over towards Egypt, and they just set up shop. He set up shop. Now you gotta remember who Thoth is. I haven't dwelt really into it, but we're gonna read further on. This is falling angels, right? They did something bad, and where they were in Atlantis, and it was destroyed. And we're gonna read that right now with Plato. So how is this a fairy tale, right? I mean, we historically use Plato. Well, the Greeks use Plato a lot as a philosopher, and he's one of the first ones who mentioned Atlantis. So the story of Atlantis, actually, well, the word Atlantis comes from him, and other Greeks that have talked about it. So here it goes. Atlantis was a legendary island realm of the far west, which was sunk beneath the ocean by the gods to punish its people for their immorality, right? Punish. The term Atlanteans was also applied by the Greeks to the Phoenician colonies along the Barbary coast of North Africa, right? Barbary coast. Didn't I just tell you Northern Africa was named Barbary? Where did they go? To the hairy barbarians, right? Thoth says they went towards the hairy barbarians, Africa. Those living near the Atlas Mountains. Atlas. Diodorus Siculus describes the Titan mythology and wars with the Libyan Amazones. Plato may have the same nation in mind for the names the second Atlantean king Gaderus, after a famous Phoenician colony near the Straits of Gibraltar. Plato's island of Atlantis. from the 4th century BC, it says here. Many great and wonderful deeds are recorded of your state, Athens, in the Egyptians' histories, right? So they're saying this is history for the Greeks. This is history. But one of them exceeds all the rest in greatness and valor. For these histories tell of a mighty power, Atlantis, which unprovoked made an expedition against the whole of Europe and Asia, and to which your city put an end. This power came forth out of the Atlantic Ocean. Okay? Atlantic Ocean. For in those days the Atlantic was navigable, and there was an island situated in front of the straits, which are by you called the Pillars of Heracles or Hercules, right? The Strait of Gibraltar. So he's saying that in those days the Atlantic was navigable because during the Greeks' time they couldn't cross over. Why do you think they took so long to get to America? Why didn't you think the Greeks and all these people went and conquered? They couldn't get through there after it seems Atlantic sank. Remember, we're saying that Atlantic sank, that part at least, which was it was all of America. Okay, it was just a little piece that sank. Somehow it was all together, and because of what happened, it's not navigable anymore during the time of Plato and all these ancient Greeks. They can't cross over. They're telling you right here. It was navigable. That means he can't navigate in his time. Let's continue. The island was larger than Libya and Asia put together, and was the way to the other islands. So it was bigger than Asia, right? So it's bigger than a continent. It's bigger than Libya. They used to consider northern Africa and most of Africa Libya. So imagine bigger than 2 continents, right? Because Europe was considered Asia too, so bigger than 3 continents. So they're talking about the whole Americas. Again, I'm telling you. Alright, and it was put together, it says, and it was the way to other islands, many islands, right? And from there you might pass to the whole of the opposite continent, which surrounded the true ocean. So it says you can cross over, if you cross over from, Atlantis, you get to the true ocean. What is that? Are they referring to the Pacific Ocean? Okay? For this sea, which is within the Straits of Heracles, is only a harbor, having a narrow entrance, but the other is a real sea. And the surrounding land may be most truly called a boundless continent. Alright, again, so Thoth left Atlantis, right, towards the east, towards the children of Cam, or Ham, right? So Cam, where is Cam? Again, Egypt, right? Let's look at right here. It says Kemenu. The ancient Egyptian name of the city means 8 town, after the Ogdod, a group of 8 deities who represented the world before creation. The name survived into Coptic as Shumonain, from which the modern name El Shumonain is derived. In Greek, the city was called Hermopolis. Again, there goes Hermopolis again. After Hermes, again Hermes, whom the Greeks identified with Thoth. Okay, with Thoth, because the city was the main cult center of Thoth. It's the main cult center of Thoth, Hermopolis. Remember that. The pharaonic god of magic, healing and wisdom, and the patron of scribes. Thoth was associated in the same way with the Semitic Eshmun. Inscriptions at the temple called the god the Lord of Eshmun. As Thoth was credited with the creation of numbers, of branches of knowledge, law, magic, philosophy, religion, science, and writing, he was thought to be an infallible judge, capable of rendering completely just decisions. The Greeks admired him so greatly that they credited him as the originator of all knowledge on earth and in the heavens. He was so important to the gods, and especially to Ra, that he was the god chosen to retrieve Ra's daughter from the distant lands she sometimes fled to. Right, so you see how he was very important in those times, man. They're giving him credit to everything. Knowledge, all knowledge. Well, what happened to the Creator, the Most High? It sounds like this guy hijacked everything. Right, so let's continue to read. I want you to get that into your mind. Start seeing how important the role that Thoth, Hermes, this character had in these times, which was an important role. Thoth's Egyptian name was Djibouti, meaning he who is like the ibis, right, like the bird. Again, the ibis was a sacred bird in ancient Egypt, as well as a popular pet and associated with wisdom. Other forms of his name are Jehuti, Tahuti, Tehuti, Sehuri, Techu, Tetu, and the lord of Kememnu, Kem again, the later city of Hermopolis. Here we go again, Hermopolis, which was his major cult center. Hermopolis was so named because of the Greek association of Thoth with their god Hermes, and to the Greeks, Thoth became Hermes Trigemistus, Thoth the thrice great, often given as 3 times great. He was also known as Lord of Mat, Lord of divine words, scribe of Mat in the company of gods, and as a just and incorruptible judge. Thoth was inserted in many tales as the wise counselor and persuader, and his association with learning and measurement led him to be connected with Seshat, the earlier deification of wisdom, who was said to be his daughter, or variably his wife. Thoth's qualities also led him being identified by the Greeks with their closest matching god Hermes, with whom Thoth was eventually combined as Hermes Trismegistus, also leading to the Greek name in Thoth's cult center at Hermopolis, meaning city of Hermes. It is also considered that Thoth was the scribe of the gods rather than a messenger. Ampu or Hermanubis was viewed as the messenger of the gods, as he traveled in and out of the underworld and presented himself to the gods and to the humans. So you see that relation, that name, how close it is to Hermes. It's Hermanubis. So he was the messenger, he went to the underworld, just like Thoth did. So let's continue. It is more widely accepted that Thoth was a record keeper, not a divine messenger. In the papyrus of Ani, a copy of the Egyptian Book of the Dead, the scribe proclaims, "I am thy writing pallet, O Thoth, and I have brought unto thee thine ink jar. I am not of those who work iniquity in their secret places. Let not evil happen unto me." Alright, so it says chapter something here, Budge. Of the Book of the Dead is by the oldest tradition said to be the work of Thoth himself. So Thoth is credited for the Book of the Dead, just that famous Egyptian book, which we see in movies like The Mummy. Alright, so there was also an Egyptian pharaoh of the 16th dynasty named Dejehuti, Thoth, after him, who reigned for 3 years. So 16th dynasty, right? Alright, so we know that Thoth said that he came out of Atlantis and he went over to Egypt. So Thoth is being associated with a pharaoh, right? So basically, there's a lot of evidence showing, if you've seen my past videos as well and other videos from other people on YouTube, you know, the ancient world, Egypt, the Old Testament was on this side of the earth, in the Americas. And when they referred to Atlantis, they were referring to the whole continent, all the civilizations or the empires, kingdoms that were in America, okay, or ancient Egypt as well. So when the Greeks are talking to or referring to Atlantis, they were referring to the ancient Egyptian empire, which was in the Americas, and Atlantis was part of it. Well, they were ruling, you know, these 10 kings of Atlantis ruled, and something happened, so they were punished, and that ended. So I mean, there's evidence here in the Grand Canyon, but there seems to be over 2,000 archaeological sites in the Grand Canyon, Egyptian or whatever other civilization they have there, Indian, seems to be a Buddha temple, and only 3 have been excavated, and I mean the rest of it is sealed. The FBI has it sealed. So just wanted to read this to you. I found it in the internet. Not exactly sure what book it's from, but I found it very interesting. So let me read it first real quick. It says in yellow here, "We are not indebted to either ancient Egypt for either religion or masonry, but to America. It is in fact that at Memphis, Egypt, in the pyramids, under the guidance of the kings and the mystic rites of masonry, were worked many thousands of years ago. But at that time, Egypt and the continent of America were one and the same." So it was the same thing. There was no distinction. So they're not saying that it was in America, but they're saying it was the same thing. So, okay, so you put it together. And it continues here. It says, "In America, rediscovered in the 15th century and repopulated in the 17th, was recovered Egypt and the Promised Land, or the land of the constellation of the Eagle." So this book's clearly stating, I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those occult Mason books, because you know they hide all the secrets, and we're gonna see how they got started. I mean, this is all from Thoth. This all started with Thoth. So, and one of the keywords here would be the constellation of the eagle, right? Eagle, another bird. Okay, we're gonna start seeing birds associated with Thoth, the EBs, right? Modern occultists suggest that some Hermetic texts may be of pharaonic origin, and that the legendary 42 essential texts that contain the core Hermetic religious beliefs and philosophy of life remain hidden in a secret library. Some trans-readings of Edgar Cayce reveal that Hermes, or Thoth, was an engineer from the submerged Atlantis who also built, designed, or directed the construction of the pyramids of Egypt. Okay, so this is what okay, so let's recap, right? So we see that modern occultists, use this Hermetic teachings. And we're going to learn what Hermetic is, in their practices, in their secret societies, right? So right here it's saying that they're giving credit to Thoth for building the pyramids, and we told you that ancient Egypt was in America, right? So we see that the Jehuti started around the 16th dynasty, it says in Wikipedia. We see that there was a major hijack at that point. When Thoth set up shop in Egypt, it was in those periods from the 16th, 17th, and 18th dynasty. At that point was when the modern Egypt that we know of today, in the pyramids and the three big pyramids, that's when it was established and built. And modern scholars will tell you they don't know how Samaria and Egypt and all these civilizations started out of nothing. There's no written record of the track of how they just all of a sudden knew how to write, how to build, had math, had everything all of a sudden. And we know now why, because we know that Thoth and the Atlanteans set up shop with the sons of Cam, right? The sons of Ham, the children of Cam in Egypt. And so he taught them all these things. That's why they gave him credit, as we read before, for creating all of knowledge, because he came and taught them all these arts that they didn't know, all these sciences that they didn't know. Alright, this fallen angel teachings from Atlantis. Alright, so let's continue, okay? So another recurring theme with Thoth would be alchemy, right? So let's read a little bit about alchemy, right? It says, in about 300 AD, Zosimos provided one of the first definitions of alchemy as the study of the composition of waters, movement, growth, and embodying and disembodying, drawing the spirits from bodies and bonding the spirits within bodies. In general, Zosimos' understanding of alchemy reflects the influence of Hermetic and Gnostic spiritualities. He asserted that the falling angels taught the arts of metallurgy to the women they married, an idea also recorded in the Book of Enoch and later repeated in the Gnostic Apocryphon of John. In a fragment preserved by Syncellus, Zosimos wrote, "The ancient and divine writings say that the angels became enamored of women, and descending taught them all the works of nature. From them, therefore, is the first tradition, Shema, concerning these arts, for they called this book Shema, and hence the science of chemistry takes its name." Alright, so look, falling angels, right? Who am I telling you Thoth is, right? And all these gods from the past, these falling angels, right? Genesis 6 tells us that, the sons of God came down to the daughters of men, and out of them came the Nephilim, right? The giants. So how far is this story? How far-fetched is all this story? Alright, let's continue. Etymology of chemistry, right? Or chema or chema, as I was saying it before. I was saying it wrong, but it was chema, right? So here we go. The word alchemy was borrowed from Old French alchemie, alchemy, taken from medieval Latin alchemia, and which is in turn borrowed from Arabic alchimia. The Arabic word is borrowed from late Greek chemia, with the agglutination of the Arabic definite article. This ancient Greek word was derived from the early Greek name for Egypt. Okay? Chemia, based on the Egyptian name for Egypt, Chem, black earth, as opposed to the red desert sand. So the medieval Latin form was influenced by Greek chemia, meaning mixture, and referring to pharmaceutical chemistry. So Thoth wrote in the Emerald Tablets that he went to the sons of Chem, right? So Chem means Egypt, and that's where you get chemistry or alchemy. Okay, let's keep going. The central figure in mythology of alchemy is Hermes Trismegistus, or thrice great Hermes. His name is derived from the god Thoth and his Greek counterpart Hermes. So these three people are the same entity, same person. Hermes and his caduceus, or serpent staff, were among alchemy's principal symbols. According to Clement of Alexandria, he wrote what were called the 42 books of Hermes, covering all fields of knowledge. The Hermetica of thrice great Hermes is generally understood to form the basis for Western alchemical philosophy and practice, called the Hermetic philosophy by its early practitioners. These writings were collected in the first centuries of the Common Era. So Thoth is Hermes, right? So let's read about Hermes. Hermes is an Olympian god in Greek religion and mythology, the son of Zeus and the Pleiad Maya, and the second youngest of the Olympian gods, Dionysus being the youngest. Hermes was the emissary and messenger of the gods. So, just like Thoth was secretary to Ra, if we remember, right? Thoth was secretary to Ra. He was like mediator between two worlds. So we're reading right now that Hermes as well is an emissary and messenger of the god. It says here Hermes was also the divine trickster, a divine trickster. We're gonna start seeing that word related to Thoth and Hermes as well, trickster, right? All right. And the god of boundaries and transgression of boundaries. So somebody who didn't follow rules or order, transgression of boundaries. All right, Hermes is Thoth, so it's the same person. The patron of herdsmen, thieves, graves, and heralds. He is described as moving freely between the worlds of the mortal and divine, and was the conductor of souls in the afterlife, just like Thoth. He was also viewed as the protector and patron of roads and travelers. Continuing with Hermes, it says the epithets of Hermes. Right here it says the Atlantiades. Hermes was also called Atlantiades because of his mother Maya was the daughter of Atlas. Alright, so who was also from Atlantis? Thoth, right? He said it himself, he came from Atlantis in the Emerald Tablets, right? You see another correlation here. And it says Creophoros, an ancient Greek cult, Creophoros, or Crophorus, the ram bearer, is a figure that commemorates the solemn sacrifice of a ram. It becomes an epithet of Hermes, Hermes Creophoros. So another interpretation or another depiction of Hermes, aka Thoth. Alright, remember this Creophoros. We're going to see how important this is later. And it says here, Argi Fontis, Hermes epithet, meaning Argus slayer, recalls his slaying of the 100-eyed giant, Argus Panoptes, it says. And who was watching over the heifer nymph, lo, in the sanctuary of Queen Hera, herself in Argos. Hermes placed a charm of Argus' eyes with the caduceus to cause the giant to sleep. After this he slew the giant. Argus' eyes were then put into the tail of the peacock. Okay, peacock, a symbol of the goddess Hera. So peacock, you start hearing about the peacock and another bird, right? And it continues, messenger and guide. And it says here, the chief office of the god was as messenger. So the chief office of the god was as messenger. Hermes, the messenger, is in fact only seen in this role for Zeus from within the pages of the Odyssey. Continuing with Hermes, in some myths he is a trickster, once again, and outwits other gods for his own satisfaction or for the sake of humankind. So he outwits other gods for his satisfaction. So he even transgresses against other gods or other fallen angels, right? His attributes and symbols include the herma, the rooster, again another bird right there, the tortoise, satchel or pouch, winged sandals, and winged cap. His main symbol is the Greek kerikeon or Latin caduceus, which appears in a form of two snakes wrapped around a winged staff with carvings of other gods. In the Roman adaptation of the Greek pantheon, Hermes is identified with the Roman god Mercury. Alright, so you see, Hermes is Mercury, aka Thoth, right? So there you start seeing that Thoth is playing important roles everywhere in all these civilizations. They're just changing his name. Who, though inherited from the Etruscans, developed many similar characteristics, such as being a patron of commerce. Okay, so we got this other character, right? Hermes Trismegistus, or Gistus, but we're going in circles here. We know it's the same character, it's the same person. So it says here, is purported author of the Hermetic Corpus, a series of sacred texts that are basis of Hermetism. And it says the name means thrice greatest Hermes, or 3 times great. Origin and identity, it says here about Hermes Trismegistus, may be a representation of the syncretic combination of the Greek god Hermes and Egyptian god Thoth. Greek and Hellenistic Egypt recognized the equivalence of Hermes and Thoth. Consequently, the 2 gods were worshipped as one, in what had been the temple of Thoth in Kemnu, the temple of Thoth in Kemnu, which the Greeks called Hermopolis. It says here, the Hermetic literature among the Egyptians, which was concerned with conjuring spirits and animating statues, informed the oldest Hellenistic writings on Greco-Babylonian astrology and on the newly developed practice of alchemy. In parallel tradition, Hermetic philosophy rationalized and systematized religious cult practices and offered an adept a means of personal ascension from constraints of physical being. This later tradition has led to the confusion of Hermetism with Gnosticism, which was developing contemporaneously. As a divine source of wisdom, Hermes Trismegistus was credited with tens of thousands of highly esteemed writings, which were reputed to be of immense antiquity. Plato's Timaeus and Critias state that in the temple of Naph and Sais there were secret halls containing historical records which had been kept for 9,000 years. Clement of Alexandria was under the impression that the Egyptians had 42 sacred writings of Hermes, writings that detailed the training of Egyptian priests. Siegfried Morens has suggested in Egyptian religion the reference to Thoth's authorship is based on ancient tradition. The figure 42 probably stems from the number of Egyptian nomes, and thus conveys the notion of completeness. The Neoplatonic writers took up Clement's 42 essential texts. Alright, so this Hermetic literature, very powerful stuff, man, and stuff that I don't really want to get into, but it says here it's about conjuring spirits and animating statues, and also says that it helped rationalize religious cult practices. So we're going to start seeing how Thoth, Hermes, and all these things they were doing in Egypt, how it led to all these mystery schools, they say, secret societies, which were practicing these religious practices that Hermes and Thoth were teaching, right? From there, we're going to have a strong correlation to the religions we see today. So it helped rationalize and systematized religious cult practices, okay? So a little bit more about this Hermetic literature, right? It says here, the Hermetica is a category of papyri containing spells and initiatory induction procedures. The dialogue called the Asclepius, after the Greek god of healing, describes the art of imprisoning the souls of demons or angels in statues with the help of herbs, gems, and odors, so that the statue could speak and engage in prophecy. In other papyri, there are recipes for constructing such images and animating them, such as when images are to be fashioned hollow so as to enclose a magic name inscribed on a gold leaf. Okay, you seeing what this is, Hermetica? Are you reading this with me? And again, etymology online says here, Thoth, ancient Egyptian god of wisdom and magic, hieroglyphics, and the reckoning of time. From Latin, from Greek Thoth, from Egyptian Tehudi, usually represented as a human figure with the head of an ibis, by the Greeks assimilated to their Hermes. Okay, same person. Hermetic, 1630s, dealing with the occult science or alchemy. Occult science or alchemy. From Latin Hermeticus, from Greek Hermes, god of science and art, among other things, who was identified by Neoplatonists, mystics, and alchemists with the Egyptian god Thoth as Hermes Trismegistus, thrice great Hermes, who supposedly invented the process of making glass tube airtight, a process in alchemy using a secret seal, hence completely sealed. Secret societies, secret proceedings, Masons. Alright, so we're starting to see that these teachings of Thoth and Hermes are starting to become worshipped, and only by a select few as well, so it's being held a secret, right, in these secret circles. So it says here, worship and cult. Prior to being known as Hermes, Frottingham thought the god to have existed as a snake god. Angelo 1997 thinks Hermes to be based on the Thoth archetype. The absorbing combining of the attributes of Hermes to Thoth developed after the time of Homer amongst Greek and Roman. Herodotus was the first to identify the Greek god with the Egyptian Hermopolis. Plutarch and Diodorus also, although Plato thought that the gods to be dissimilar. A cult was established in Greece in remote regions, likely making him a god of nature, farmers and shepherds. It is also possible that since the beginning he has been a deity with shamanic attributes linked to divination, reconciliation, magic, sacrifices, and initiation, and contact with other planes of existence, a role of mediator between the worlds of the visible and invisible. Okay, so initiation. Who does initiations in modern day? Secret circles. Now, so could these teachings, possibly be the foundation of our religions of today? Christianity, Islam, and all the other ones that come out of those two main ones? So it says here, many Christian writers, including Lactantius, Augustine, Giordano Bruno, Marsilio Ficino, Campanella, and Giovanni Pico della Mirandola, considered Hermes Trismegistus to be a wise pagan prophet who foresaw the coming of Christianity. So they call him a wise pagan prophet. He was pagan, but they still calling him a prophet, and he was wise. And it says he foresaw the coming of Christianity. How are they relating that to him? Well, we're gonna see. They believed in a Prisca theologia. They believed in the Prisca theologia, the doctrine that a single true theology exists, which threads through all religions. It was given by God to man in antiquity, and passed through a series of prophets, which included Zoroaster and Plato. Zoroaster was another Jesus-type savior. In order to demonstrate the verity of the Prisca theologia, Christians appropriated the Hermetic teachings for their own purposes. So what did the Christians do? In order to demonstrate the verity of the Prisca theologia, Christians appropriated the Hermetic teachings for their own purposes. By this account, Hermes Trismegistus was either a contemporary of Moses or the third in line of men named Hermes, Enoch, Noah, and the Egyptian priest who is known to us as Hermes Trismegistus, on account of being the greatest priest, philosopher, and king. So it's very important here, as you can see, that Christianity, or they're telling us here, they appropriated the Hermetic teachings for their own purposes. So why is it telling us that? We're going to see. Islamic tradition. Sayyid Ahmed Amiruddin has pointed out that Hermes Trismegistus has a major place in Islamic tradition. He writes, Hermes Trismegistus is mentioned in the Quran in verse 19, 56-57, mentioned in the book Idris that he was truthful, a prophet. We took him up to a high place. The Jabirian corpus contains the oldest documented source for the Emerald Tablet, or Hermes Trismegistus, translated by Jabir ibn Hayden Gerber for the Hashemite Caliph, or Baghdad Harun al-Rashid, the Abbasid. Alright, so what did it just tell us, man? I mean, listen to what it's telling us here, man. It's telling that Hermes Trismegistus is mentioned in the Quran, okay? And it says that Idris, one of their prophets, and we're going to show you who Idris is later on. You're going to see how it links to Hermes and Thoth. He says that he was truthful, a prophet. and we took him up to a high place. So why is the Quran saying Hermes, this occult science, spirit conjuring magician? Why they call him a prophet? Okay, what do you think all this stuff for genies and the flying the carpets and all that come out of in this region of the Middle East? You see, it's Thoth and Hermes teachings. Now let's keep reading. It says Jabir ibn Hayyan al-Ashait, identified as Jabir al-Sufi, was a student of Jafar al-Sadiq, Hussein ibn Ali's great-grandson. Thus, for the Abbasids and the Alids, the writings of Hermes Trismegistus were considered sacred, as an inheritance from the al-Albayt. These writings were recorded by the Ikhwan al-Safa and subsequently translated from Arabic into Persian, Turkish, then Hebrew, Russian, and English. In these writings, Hermes Trismegistus is identified as Idris, Idris, the infallible prophet who traveled to outer space from Egypt and to heaven, whence he brought back Adam and the black stone when he landed on earth in India. So, because the ancient earth was all called the three Indias, right? The three Indias. So the black stone, Kaaba, right? The Kaaba has the black stone they're talking about in Mecca. So again, we can see some kind of hermetic foundation with Christianity and Islam. We're going to go in depth into this with both religions later on. Again, here it goes. Hermetism. Also called Hermetism, is a religious, philosophical, and esoteric tradition based primarily upon writings attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, thrice great. These writings have greatly influenced the Western esoteric tradition and were considered to be of great importance during both the Renaissance and the Reformation. Okay, you hearing this? Very important. The tradition claims descent from Prisca Theologia, a doctrine that affirms the existence of a single true theology that is present in all religions and that was given by God to man in antiquity. It's present in all religions. Okay, you seeing what I'm trying to tell you here, right? Because we're about to dive in deep. We're about to take it to another level right now, all right? So I hope you're ready, and I'm glad you're still here after an hour. All right, so before we continue, let's just recap a little bit, right? So we've been able to see that Thoth, Hermes, Mercury, Hermes Trismegistus are the same identity, deity, person, character. And it doesn't end there. We're going to see the many manifestations of Thoth, alright, throughout history. It's going to continue. I'm going to show you everything else. Again, a recurring theme with these characters or Thoth is writing, alchemy, scribe, record keeper, messenger, knowledge, underworld, God, magic, science, secretary or assistant. And that's interesting because we're about to go into the OHP Bible. If you haven't heard of this book, it's a really crazy book, but you know, Drop Nation, you know, we take out the baby, so we go into these documents. You know, we don't know if they're real or not, but we take out what is necessary. You know, what we feel is a foundational truth somewhere, so we can pull it out, right? And we can use it and put the pieces together of the puzzle, right, that we're building. Now we're gonna start hearing about angels, so let's read a little bit about an angel here, right? It says, an angel, especially according to Abrahamic religions and Zoroastrianism, is a spiritual being superior to humans in power and intelligence. Angels are typically described as benevolent, dreadful, and endowed with wisdom and knowledge of earthly events, but not infallible, for they strive with each other, and God has to make peace between them. So angels fight between each other, right? And God has to make peace between them, right? All right, so let's keep going. Most of them serve either as intermediaries between heaven and earth or as a guardian spirit. So keyword there, intermediaries. They are studied in the theological doctrine of angelology. In Christian Science, the word angel is used to refer to an inspiration from God. The use of the term has extended to refer to artistic depictions of the spirits. and it is also used figuratively to refer to messengers and to harbingers and to people who possess high qualities of goodness, purity, selflessness, intelligence, or beauty. So you can see all the things that the word angel, the energy, it carries the word angel, right? Angels are referred to in connection with their spiritual missions, as for instance, the angel which has redeemed, an interpreter, right? An interpreter. The angel that destroyed, the messenger of the covenant, angel of his presence, and a band of angels of evil. All right, sounds like Thoth a lot. Let's look at the etymology of the word angel. It says here the word angel is in English a blend of Old English angel with a hard G and Old French angeli, both derived from late Latin angelus, messenger. Again, messenger. Just like Mercury, Thoth, Hermes, which in turn was borrowed from late Greek angelos, according to R.S.P. Beeks. Angelos itself may be an Oriental loan, like Persian mounted courier. The word's earliest form is Mycenaean, A.K. Rowe attested in Linear B syllabic script. The Angelos is the default Septuagint's translation of the biblical Hebrew term malak, denoting simply messenger, without specifying its nature. In the Latin Vulgate, the meaning becomes bifurcated when malak or angelos is supposed to denote a human messenger. Words like nintuus or legatus are applied. If the word refers to some supernatural being, the word angelos appears. Such differentiation has been taken over by later vernacular translations of the Bible, early Christian and Jewish exegetes, and eventually modern scholars. Again, just a reminder, Hermes, right? Thoth, right? Hermes was the emissary and messenger of the gods. Hermes was also a divine trickster. So Hermes was a messenger and a trickster. Mercury says here, like Hermes, he was also a god of messages, eloquence, and of trade, particularly of the grain trade. So Mercury also is known as a messenger or the god of messages. Let's continue. And Thoth says here, it is also considered that Thoth was the scribe of the gods rather than a messenger. Ampu or Hermanubis, there you go again, Hermanubis was viewed as the messenger of the gods, as he traveled in and out of the underworld and presented himself to the gods and to the humans. So there's a strong correlation also with this Ampu, or the dog-headed god of Egypt, Anubis, Hermanubis, with Thoth. You know, and if we were to correlate Anubis and all the other gods that Thoth was, I mean, this video wouldn't end. So as you can see, Thoth was also like a messenger. He was back and forth, just like an angel can be back and forth, an intermediary. We read that already. So Thoth was also one as well. It says here, examples of supernatural messengers are the Malak Yahweh, who is either a messenger from God, an aspect of God such as the Logos, or God himself as the messenger, the theophanic angel. Archangel Gabriel, also identified as Abruel, Jibril, Jiburili, Seraphili. Gabriel means God is my strength. Gabriel told Elizabeth and Mary of the coming births of John the Baptist and Jesus. Gabriel is known as the messenger. She guides hopeful parents through conception and adoption process. She also helps people involved in arts and communication. It says here, additionally, Gabriel is the patron saint of messengers. Those who work for broadcasting and telecommunications such as radio and television, remote sensing, postal workers, clerics, diplomats, and stamp collectors. Alright, so Gabriel. Alright, so we're about to go into this OHP Bible, and I think you guys are ready for it now. You know, we're gonna start talking about Gabriel and Thoth. So it took me an hour to get to this part of the video, but I think it was worth it. I had to establish certain things with you regarding Thoth, the history, and all that's coming out of what we're learning from Thoth. Alright, so just a reminder, you know, we're just surfing the wave. We're just gonna get the babies out of here, right? So it says, the OASP, a new Bible, in the words of Jehovah, and his angel ambassadors, a sacred history of the dominions of the higher and lower heavens on the earth for the past 24,000 years, together with the synopsis of the cosmogony of the universe, the creation of planets, the creation of man, the unseen worlds, the labor and glory of God and gods and goddesses in the ethereal heavens, with the new commandments of Jehovah to man of the present day, with revelations from the second resurrection, formed in words in the 33rd year of the Cosmic era. Alright, so this is the book. Let's get into it. So just gonna want to show you the glossary in this book. Some of these words, very interesting. I wanted to see so you can kind of get the idea of where this book takes you. So the very first word here, it says Algonquin, right? The United States of the North American Indians before the destruction of the Christians, by the Christians. So is that what they called themselves? Instead of America, was it actually called Algonquin? Algonquin tribes were numerous and covered a lot of the land in the United States. So let's continue. Archangel, angels next in rank to gods, who dwell in certain arcs in Etheria. They generally come in the dawn of a cycle to give new inspiration to mortals. So they give inspiration to mortals, okay? Intermediaries, right? Messengers. While they remain with mortals, as during the last few years, good mortals become more angelic toward one another, okay? So it says here, Babel, compounding too many things together, as the Jihaic language, Babel, confuse the languages. Beast, the animal man, the earthly part of man, anything that is enforced as a religion, anything that is enforced as a religion, not something that is natural, that you're born with. Hawa. Belial, or Belial, or Baal, one of the 7 Hebrew tetrarchs. Hypocrisy, crawling, see Satan. And then down here says Bra, or Brahman, wisdom, knowledge. Bra was the founder of the Brahmanism and was contemporaneous with Abraham, means that he lived in the same time, or Abraham. See first book of God. And under the false god Enoch Chisa, the word Brahma became synonymous with warrior. Continuing with the glossary, it says here in the top, Buddha, wisdom, knowledge. But afterward, under the false god Kabbalactis, the word Buddha became synonymous with warrior, Kalabaktis. And after that, Christ, or Christe, wisdom, knowledge, education. After the false god Loamon falsely took this name, it became synonymous with warrior. So it was hijacked. Christians, or Christians, a brotherhood of warriors. They were named Christians in derision by the Hebrews. One who rushes into multitude of rioters and with a sword enforces peace is a true Christian. You hearing this? A people whose faith is in arms and stand in armies. Okay? The following words are synonymous: Brahma, Buddha, Christ, Christe, Baal, Ashtaroth, Dagon, Vishnu, Ashdod, knowledge, wisdom, Krishna, light, Po, Te'in, Wa, Manido, and in fact a score of others. Right, so you see everything that's related and synonymous with Christian or Christ, Christe, which was hijacked by Luamon. We're going to read about Luamon. Okay, remember that Christian, he was the one who hijacked and enforced Christe. In the bottom it says Div, or Diva, or divinity, a parliament of lords in the lower heavens. The Divan laws were in use 3,000 years ago. So Diva, a parliament of lords. So calling all these artists divas, right? Let's continue. And it says here Ham on the top. Cosmological name of Egypt, right? Where did Thoth go when he left Atlantis? He went to the sons of Cam in Egypt. Cam means Egypt. Cam, the word for chemistry, alchemy, and Ham, right? Cosmological name of Egypt. The followers of Abraham bestowed that country's name on him after they settled there. One who was black with sunburn. Okay, continue. Lord, right? So Diva is a, right? Lord, a god of the earth, or a part of the earth. A god of the earth. You hear this? Not of heaven. A god of the earth, or part of the earth, next lower in rank than the God of heaven and earth. So it's a rank, right? It's a title. The first exalted rank an angel receives in heaven is Asaph. The second is Ashar. The third is Luis. The fourth, Marshal. And the fifth, Lord. And the sixth, God. So these words are just titles. Not doesn't mean Hawa, the creator, the breath of life. It says marshals are rather vice lords and are not titled. The first title is Lord, the second God. God sometimes appoints a lord to a single city on earth, sometimes one to a nation. A lord's minor dominion is 100 million angels, and a major, several thousand millions. Lords must have passed beyond the second resurrection before eligibility. You hear all this crazy stuff? Alright, so Thoth was a lord, right? Most likely. So it says Osiris. And we're gonna I'm starting to link Thoth to all these ancient Egyptian gods. Somehow they just gave him different names for the different roles he played, but it's the same person. So Osiris says here, philosophy of measurement. Thoth is also known as measurement, right? One who maintains that only what can be measured or weighed is real knowledge. Alright, so he doesn't believe in Hawa, the spirit, right? Or the essence, the energy, the vibration of creation, because he can't see it. The sun is the largest, therefore the sun is the almightiest. So that's where sun worship comes out of, because they can see it. Also a god. See Book of Osiris. There was also a false god Osiris of later date who inspired the building of the pyramids. A false god Osiris who built the pyramids, according to Edgar Cayce, was Thoth. And we're telling you that the 18th dynasty, from the 16th to the 18th, is when they started it over there in Egypt. The 3 pyramids got built. It's during the same reign as Djehuti and Thutmose. So let's continue. Alright, so we're going to start from this part of the book. Alright, and the very first word you see here is Thoth, right? Our main character, right? So let's read what it says. Thoth sent the following message to Luamon, to wit, greeting to thee, thou most high triune, in the name of the Holy Ghost. So he's calling Luamon a triune. Triune, if you Google it, you'll see that it represents the triety deities, or the gods, the triple character, triple head, triple face, and you can Google that. So let's continue. And Thoth continues, wherein I am embarrassed, I pray thee give me leniency. My suit is not without due deliberation, and through prayer to the Holy Ghost. Long have I fought thy battles, and I have gained great power and authority in many kingdoms, in heaven and earth. So he says, yo, I've been doing your work for a long time, right? That's what Thoth is telling him. Fought your battles and gained great power and authority. So now he has power and authority, right? Because he was in Egypt, right? In heaven and earth, right? But behold, I labor against gods who have the advantage of me. So he's saying there's other gods that have advantage over him, that he's working against them. The Chineyan rebel gods and the Vindu rebel gods. So the Asian gods and Indian gods, or the Vindu, right? India, Vindu, right? The Hindu gods, that's what he's talking about. So there's other gods, right? That fled from the Triune kingdoms in the east. The Triune kingdoms, again, Triune, have taken upon themselves names popular with the mortals. So Thoth explains, witness these names, and he says, these are the names: Nestor, alias Puith; Neptune, alias Poseidon; Olius, alias Pendre, Priam, alias Hoga. So it keeps going with all these names. We're going to see Kronos here, we're going to see Testor, Suko, Beirith, Calchas, Argos, Venus. We're going to see Vishnu, Mira, Thor, Theo, Vulcan, alias Agriel, Kalinessa, Hecla, Ja, there you go, Ja, Tyronia, Nilkus, Nemertis, Itra, Promethea, Mitra, Ospendis, Miletus, Brahma, Morotota, and these are just some names I'm reciting here. Hecla, again Thor, Padua, Hermes, alias Belus, Hieroth, Josamis, and the list goes on, right? So Thoth continues, and yet there are And Thoth continued, and yet they are not all, for these gods have no fear of the Holy Ghost, and they choose any name that will be flattering to mortals, and the magicians and priests and such others as have power to hear the voices of spirits are led to believe that they hear the very gods whose names are given. Thoth continues, this then is my misfortune, thou most holy God of Triune. I am commanded to give but one name, even the Holy Ghost or the Father, to mortals. So he's saying that they're asking him for a name to worship, because it seems there's a lot of names going around, right? A lot of gods, a lot of gods impersonating the names of these deities that they had created, the triunes, right? Or whether my angel hosts speak to the oracles or to persons capable of hearing spirits and say to them, fight ye for the Holy Ghost, or fight ye for the creative element. Mortals heed us not. Or they irreverently mock us, saying, what care we for God that is but a ghost, a shadow, a creative element? Give us gods that talk, and of themselves. We want no angels from the Holy Ghost. Bring your gods and let the oracles tell us what they say. So you hear what he's saying? He's saying that the humans are demanding a God that they can see, not somebody just in spirit or just like a representation. And they saying we want no angels. They're telling Thoth, we want none of you guys, none of you messengers, none of you intermediaries. Okay, let's continue. Luamon then sent messengers in suitable escort to Jerusalem on the earth, where Thoth was stationed at the time. So where was Thoth? In Jerusalem. That's what it says here, right? With an angel host of warriors, commanding his presence before his holy council in Hapsendi, Luamon's heavenly city and kingdom. Okay? Now, after Thoth went thither, and they held a council of many days, a disturbance arose in the council in consequence of the heat of the debates. For the gods of the council, for the most part, said, what better are we than the Jehovians? What greater power have we than the Jehovians? Who can answer the philosophy of Thoth? Right? Is it a truth? Mortals have never been satisfied with an angel from the gods. They want the God himself. Was not this forever the weakness of the Jehovians? Such angels could give no name that mortals knew, save they falsely assumed a name. Hence their weakness compared to such angels as unscrupulously assumed to be gods. Alright, so let me try to break this down. So it seems that Luamon is in this holy council he has in this heavenly kingdom with other gods, right? Or other fallen angels. And they're saying, what better are we than the Jehovians? What greater power have we than the Jehovians? So they're saying, they're like, aren't we more stronger than them? They're trying to they're almost kind of like creating a confederacy, right? They're planning something. They're creating an agenda here. So let's continue. Behold, it has now come to pass, mortals desire a more definite God, one known unto them. We cannot truthfully take the name of any God Thoth hath named, nor of any other God worshipped by mortals. So look what it's saying. It's saying that they can't worship anymore the gods that Thoth has named. So how many representations does Thoth have? I told you he's a lot of gods, right? Let's continue. Luamon then drove hence from the palace his holy council, that he might have an opportunity to reason with himself as to what to do. So it says that he went into his holy council, right? So he can think about what he needs to do. What is he gonna do, man? They're requiring a name, a god, right? That's what Thoth is saying. So let's see what happens. So Luamon goes to the holy council, right? So it says here, Zain enters the holy council on Hapsendi and speaketh unto Luamon, the triune. Okay, so let's see what goes on in the holy council. Hear me, O thou most upright of gods. Mine is a tale of pity and of horrors for thy people. Behold, thy one-time brother, triunes, have had great advantages of thee from the start. They had more populous kingdoms and subjects of higher grades. Nevertheless, wherein they have prospered, thou shalt be wise. They also found it necessary to have a name that mortals could call unto, and they took upon themselves the name Brahma and Buddha, both of which signify knowledge no more ignore no less. So it's saying that it seems that there's other gods established and that they actually were able to establish their names with these people. So Satan, I guess, hasn't been worshipped as much as he would like to. That's what I'm interpreting here. That there's other gods that they actually went by Brahma and Buddha, right? The Vindu we read earlier, and the Chinen, the Asian gods, and the Vindi and the Indian gods, right? So let's continue. This has satisfied mortals. Now thou shalt choose the name Christe, which is the Ahamic word for knowledge also. In this then thou shalt have truth on thy side in heaven before the holy council, and on earth thou shalt have a personal embodiment. So he told Luaman, Satan, to go ahead and use the name Christe, and that he will be backed up by the holy council in heaven. So he gave him his blessings, right? And on earth thou shalt have a personal embodiment. Okay, so he should have a personal embodiment on earth. All right, so here we go. Let's continue. So we continue, right? So it says here, Luimon falsely announces himself the Christ, right? Because he just got the okay from Satan himself to use this name according to this Bible, this book, right? So let's continue. It says, the Lord said, behold, it came to pass, as had been foretold by God, Jehovah's Son, the triunes will all become false gods. They became false gods. So they weren't always false gods, because they have denied the Almighty. So they chose this order, not the order that was already established from the beginning. And God said, there is but one who is all knowledge. Whatsoever angel or God announces himself to be all knowledge is false in presence of Jehovah. So he's saying there's only one true creator. Whatever angel, messenger, right, God, because these are titles, right? God, because they call themselves gods in people's name, but the word God is a man word. It's created by man, right? The creator is Hawa. It's vibration. It's the breath of life. Jehovah. To be, to exist. So it says, whatsoever angel or God announces himself to be all knowledge is false in presence of Jehovah's. Nevertheless, Luimon had it proclaimed in heaven and earth that he was the Christe, which is the Ahamic expression for all knowledge. So again, Brahma, Buddha, and Christe just meant knowledge. They basically made that a name and made it into a god, a deity to worship. That's what it's saying here. The Lord said, now therefore Luimon was from this time forth a false god in the heaven and earth. So from that time on he was considered a false god, when he actually said, no, I am the Christe. Alright, he proclaimed himself a god. And Luimon commanded Thoth. Who? Thoth, our favorite person in the story, right? Our main character, Thoth, his angel. He's an angel warrior, right? He's being described as an angel warrior in command of his earthly dominions to raise up tribes of warriors amongst mortals. And by the inspiration of said Thoth, these warriors were induced to call themselves Christians, or in parentheses Christians. Alright? Are you following what's going on? Alright, so let's continue, because we're about to get really deep with this. Alright, how much of a fairy tale is this? Alright, so let's continue. So Thoth called them the Christians, right? So let's see if we remember now. Again, it says here in Wikipedia, many writers, including, all these they have right here, among them Giordano Bruno, Augustine, Sir Thomas Browne, Ralph Waldo Emerson. It says, considered Hermes Trismegistus to be a wise pagan prophet who foresaw the coming of Christianity. Hermes is Thoth. Thoth is the one they sent to start the Christian faith, or the Christian God, the Christians. It says Hermes was a wise pagan prophet who foresaw the coming of Christianity to these early Christians. Let's continue. Again, Hermetism is a religious, philosophical, and esoteric tradition based primarily upon writings and attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, thrice great. It says these writings have greatly influenced the Western esoteric tradition and were considered to be of great importance during both Renaissance and the Reformation. Okay? Let's continue. The tradition claims descent from Priscatiologia, a doctrine that affirms the existence of a single true theology that is present in all religions. That was present in all religions and that was given by God to man in antiquity. Okay, in antiquity, way back. Now we don't know if the Oashpi is true or not, if it's really from an angel or a good angel or a bad angel, but we see that Thoth was sent to go ahead and proclaim the Christian name and create the Christians, right? And we see how Thoth was Hermes, and we see how Hermes created Hermetism, and we see how Hermetism had a lot of influence in creating our religions, especially in those times, those secret mystery schools, those secret societies that were being established in Greece and Egypt. We know that Thoth and the Emerald Tablet said he went over to Egypt, right, where the Barbary hairy ones lived, right, to Cam, the sons of Cam, right? And if you are a scholar of religion or history or theology, you know that a lot of influence has come out of Egypt for these three religions, Islam, Judaism, Christianity. So am I the only one relating this? Of course not. Alright, let's continue. So can we discern? So let's continue. It says regarding Hermetism, it says here, in late antiquity, Hermetism emerged in parallel with early Christianity. You hear this? Parallel with early Christianity. Who told Thoth to go down and create the Christians or have the people called the god Christe, right? So in late antiquity, Hermetism emerged in parallel with early Christianity, Gnosticism, Neoplatonism, the Chaldean oracles, and the late Orphic and Pythagorean literature. These doctrines were characterized by resistance to the dominance of either pure rationality or doctrinal faith. The books now known as the Corpus Hermeticum were part of the renaissance of syncretistic and intellectualized pagan thought that took place from the 3rd to the 7th century AD. You see how long that book was going around and how it was used by, it was very popular in pagan thought. These post-Christian Greek texts dwell upon the oneness and goodness of God, urge purification of the soul, and defend pagan religious practices such as the veneration of images. Okay? What are we starting to get into here, right? Let's pay attention because this is going to lead us to a lot of things. So it says, it urge purification of the soul and defend pagan religious practices such as the veneration of images. So again, commandment number 2, thou shalt not make unto thee any graven images. Alright, let's go back. So again, it continues here. And defend pagan religious practices such as the veneration of images. Their predominant literary form is the dialogue. Hermes Trismegistus instructs a perplexed disciple upon various teachings of the hidden wisdom. So who wrote this hermetic writing, Hermetism? He created Hermetism, right? It's Hermes, aka Thoth. Alright, Luhmann sent Thoth and told him, go tell them to worship Christe, give them the name Christe. And out of that came the Christians, right? The warriors. Alright, so what are we seeing here? Hermetism, Thoth's writings was very popular, and it defended the right to practice and venerate images, veneration of images. Alright, so early Christians again said that Hermes Trismegistus was a wise pagan prophet that foresaw the coming of Christianity. Alright, so let's continue. It says here, in modern era, in 1945, Hermetic texts were found near the Egyptian town of Nag Hammadi. So these are real, you see, they were found. One of these texts had the form of a conversation between Hermes and Asclepius. So Hermes ain't fiction, alright? A second text titled On the Ogdad and Ennead told of the Hermetic mystery schools. Alright, so this is what I was talking about, the mystery schools and these secret societies they started establishing with this knowledge that Thoth, Hermes, was teaching. It was written in the Coptic language. the latest and final form in which the Egyptian language was written. And it says here, according to Giza Vermes, Hermetism was a Hellenistic mysticism contemporaneous with the fourth gospel. You hear this? Okay? And Hermes Trismegistus was the Hellenized reincarnation of the Egyptian deity Thoth, the source of wisdom, who was believed to defy man through knowledge, or as they say here, Gnosticism. So look what he influenced as well. And Gilles Quiskel says, it is not completely certain that there existed before and after the beginning of Christian era in Alexandria a secret society akin to a Masonic lodge. The members of this group called themselves brethren, were initiated through a baptism of the Spirit, and it continues, greeted each other with a sacred kiss, celebrated a sacred meal, and read the Hermetic writings as edifying treatises for the spiritual progress. Alright, so is this a joke? You see? Is this the start of the early Christians that Thoth went down to establish when Luamon sent him? Because they needed, the people were asking for a name of a god. They were following the other gods because the other gods had names. Alright, so let's continue. And it says here, the cross marked Hermes, a god of four-way crossroads, the four quarters of the earth, the four elements, the four divisions of the sacred year, the four winds, and the solstices and equinoxes represented by their zodiacal totems, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, the bull, lion, serpent, and man-angel, symbols adopted by the Christians to represent the four evangelists. Okay, look what it was adopted by the Christians. Okay, sometimes the cross of Hermes was an ankh, standing on a crescent that signified his mother, the moon. Remember, he was considered the moon as well before he was considered Thoth, the deity of record keeping and all that, and wisdom. He was considered the god of the moon. So his right here saying his mom is the moon, so it's almost the same thing. This evolved into the conventional sign of Mercury, a circle with a cross sign of Mercury, Hermes, below, and a crescent above. Alright, you see the symbol here of the ankh or the cross here, right? And we're going to start seeing these horns or this crescent moon everywhere. And I know you've seen it everywhere too, so that's where it comes from. And the bull, we're going to start seeing the bull, but it's going to be related, you know, to Thoth or you know, one of the falling angels having people worship the bull, the image of the bull. And again, we see the bird, right? We see that there's a bird always related with Thoth, right? Or Hermes, Thoth, the bird. Alright, so let's continue. So we know that when we're talking about Hermes, we're just talking about Thoth, right? He who is like the abyss, right? And it says that he was the lord of Kemenu, the later city of Hermopolis. We're going to see what Hermopolis was for him and what it was for the ancient world, which was his major cult center. Hermopolis was so named because of the Greek association of Thoth with the god Hermes. To the Greek, Thoth became Hermes Trismegistus. Thoth, the thrice great, often given as 3 times great. Alright, so Hermopolis, right? His main cult was in Hermopolis. Hermopolis, Egyptian for Kemenu, was a major city in antiquity located near the boundary between Lower and Upper Egypt, a provincial capital since the Old Kingdom period, so it's really old. Hermopolis developed into a major city of Roman Egypt and an early Christian center from the 3rd century. An early Christian center. Are we relating Hermopolis and Hermes and Thoth to the Christians and the Christian and early Christian center? This is Wikipedia, not me, people. It continues. It says here, a Christian tradition holds it to be the place where the Holy Family found refuge during its exile in Egypt. Hermopolis mayor was a suffragan diocese of the provincial capital's metropolitan archdiocese of Antioch in the sway of the Patriarch of Alexandria. Like most, it faded under Islam. So you see, this was a big Christian center, and this is where the Holy Family went during their exile in Egypt. If you know the story, do you remember? As a child, I believe Herod was going to kill him, so they had to flee to Egypt, and this is where they went, Hermopolis, where the major cult temple for Thoth, Hermes, and Typhoon is, where all this started, where Thoth landed and set up shop. And who is the Holy Family? You know who's the Holy Family, alright? So there's a major Christian center here in Hermopolis. The Holy Family's going there, and we're starting to see that they are worshiping, these teachings, these secret societies, these Hellenistic mystery schools, as they call them, right? And it says here, a cult was established in Greece, in remote regions, likely making him a god of nature. So they're talking about Hermes. And shepherds, okay, shepherds, remember that word. It is also possible that since the beginning he has been a deity with shamanic attributes linked to divination, reconciliation, magic, sacrifices, okay, sacrifices, and initiation. There you go, initiation, secret societies. In contact with other planes of existence, a role of a mediator between the worlds of the visible and invisible. So we can say, the teachings of Thoth and Hermes had a lot of influence back in these days, and it was starting to be worshipped as a god, as a religion almost. So who were they worshiping? Well, the emissary and messenger of the gods, Hermes, this divine trickster, as it says here in the middle. Hermes was also a divine trickster. All right, why was he a trickster? Why are they calling him that? Is he doing things that he shouldn't be doing? And again, it says here epithets of Hermes, right? And it shows all these different names: Atalantiades, Cryophoros, Argefontes. First of all, what is an epithet? In etymology online, it says epithet, descriptive name for a person or a thing. It's just a descriptive name for a person or a thing. So if they say epithet of Hermes, it's just giving him a descriptive name. Let's continue. From Middle French epitete, or directly from Latin epiteton, Spanish epiteto, Portuguese epiteto. From the Greek epiteton, an epithet, something added, a noun used as an adjective, attributed, added, assumed. So it's assumed to be Hermes, right? The same. From epitetenai, to add on. From epi, in addition. So it is Hermes, the same, just added, something added to it. See epi, titanio, to put, to place. From a reduplicated form of pie, root je, de, to set, put. Alright, that's what epithet means. So it just means the same, a descriptive name for a person or thing. So a descriptive name for Hermes would be Cryophoros, right? Cryophoros, very important. So it says in ancient Greek cult, Cryophoros or Cryophoros, the ram bearer, is a figure that commemorates the solemn sacrifice of a ram. It becomes an epithet of Hermes, Cryophoros. So Cryophoros, the ram bearer, right? So we read earlier that Hermes is worshipped as nature, as a farmer, and as a shepherd. So we have this right here. If you can see, it says Cryophodoi, the good shepherd. It says freestanding 4th century Roman sculpture, and even 3rd century ones are sometimes identified as Christ, the good shepherd. So it's not the same. It says sometimes identified as Christ, the good shepherd, illustrating the pericope in the Gospel of John, and also the 2nd century Christian literary work, The Shepherd of Hermes. I'm going to read that soon. In two-dimensional art, Hermes Cryophoros transformed into the Christ, carrying a lamb, walking among his sheep. Okay, are you hearing this? Hermes Cryophoros transformed into Christ, carrying a lamb, walking amongst his sheep. And here we go again with Thoth influencing, right? Thoth, Hermes. It says, thus we find philosophers holding scrolls or a Hermes Cryophoros, which can be turned into Christ giving the law, traditio, legis, and the Good Shepherd respectively. Peter Linda Murray, the Oxford Companion to Classical Art and Architecture, page 475. The Good Shepherd is a common motif from the catacombs of Rome, Gardner 10, figure 54, and in sarcophagus reliefs, where Christian and pagan symbolism are often combined. Christian and pagan symbolism are often combined, making secure identification difficult. The theme does appear in the wall paintings of the baptistry of the Dura Eroforos Church, a house church of Dura Eroforos before 256 CE. So this is the image that is there that they say in this church, right? You can see that it's like a figure of a man holding a ram around his shoulder. This is a very old image, and I'm going to show you what how old this church is and what was the significance of this church. They got Krios in it, right? It's supposed to be an early Christian church, and they have Krios image in it. And it says here regarding the Dura Europos Church in Wikipedia, it's the earliest identified Christian house church. Okay, the earliest church, Christian church. It is located in Dura Europos in Syria. It is one of the earliest known Christian churches and was apparently a normal domestic house converted for worship sometime between 233 and 256. When the town was abandoned after the conquest of the Persians, it is less famous, smaller, and more modestly decorated than the nearby Dura Europos synagogue, though there are many other similarities between them. Alright, so this early church has an image, a pagan image of Krios. So you see how even in the earliest foundations of Christianity, there's evidence of pagan worship. So let's continue. This is another image or a painting that's in the wall in this church. As you can see, there's some heavy sun symbolism here. Not sure if they worship it, but it's a church. They have all these symbolisms there. They have Krios, so most likely they are worshiping the sun, right? And also, in this place we can find a depiction of our copper-colored Hebrews on the other side of the world, right? This is the Exodus, a depiction of the crossing, the parting of the sea. Take a look. Copper-colored. I'll just leave it at that. Continuing where we were with the Good Shepherd now. So it says, this fresco of the Good Shepherd was found on the ceiling of the vault of Lucina in the catacomb of Calixtus in Rome. The construction of the vault itself has been dated to the second half of the 2nd century, but the use of the red and green lines to divide the space, similar to the chambers under San Sebastiano, has suggested the first half of the middle of the 3rd century for this fresco. Okay, so even later. The image of Jesus as the Good Shepherd was an especially popular motif in the early Christian centuries. It was based in several biblical passages, including the 23rd Psalm and sayings of Jesus, and is also an adaptation of popular pagan image, an adaptation of a popular pagan image. So we're talking about the Good Shepherd, right? We're just talking about Thoth again, right? Thoth, Hermes. It says here, the Shepherd of Hermas. The Shepherd of Hermas is a Christian literary work of the late 1st and mid 2nd century, considered a valuable book by many Christians, okay? And considered canonical scripture by some of the early church fathers, such as Irenaeus. So it was considered canonical, the Shepherd of Hermas, right? Okay. The shepherd was very popular amongst Christians in the 2nd and 3rd centuries. It was bound as part of the New Testament in the Codex Sinaiticus, and it was listed between the Acts of the Apostles and the Acts of Paul in the stichometrical list of the Codex Claromontanus. You hearing all this, people? The work comprises 5 visions, 12 mandates, and 10 parables. It relies on allegory and pays special attention to the church, calling the faithful to repent to the sins that have harmed it. The book was originally written in Rome, in the Greek language, but at first Latin translations, the Vulgata, was made very shortly afterwards. A second Latin translation, the Palatina, was made at the beginning of the 5th century. Of the Greek version, the last fifth or so is missing. Okay, and it continues. The shepherd is one of the meanings that was probably attached to some figurines of the good shepherd, as well as a symbol for Christ or a traditional pagan Creole's photo. So they're not the same. It was just adapted and it made a symbol for Christ. Traditional pagan Creole's photos. Alright, we're gonna keep linking more things. Are you still with me, people? Let's continue. We're almost done with this first part. Alright, so listen to this part. So it says the Shepherd of Hermas is again an early Christian writing which contains teachings also for the Christians of today. Hermas was vouchsafed a series of visions of the church, who appeared in the form of a lady. A lady. Is this the Virgin Mary apparitions we know of today? Instructing him on the nature of the church and on the moral obligations of all Christians. Okay? And finally we see the correlation with the Good Shepherd, which it says here is an image used in the pericope of John 10:1-21, in which Jesus Christ is depicted as the Good Shepherd who lays down his life for the sheep. Similar imagery is used in Psalms 23. The Good Shepherd is also discussed in the other Gospels, the Epistle to the Hebrews, the first Epistle of Peter, and Book of Revelations, in reference to Jesus not letting himself lose any of his sheep. Okay? Alright, so look at the statue, look at the image. That is Creole's photos. Again, Hermetic teachings made it okay for pagans, right, to keep worshiping their images, right? And Christianity adopted these images. So, alright, so an hour and 40 minutes. Alright, so this is a good time to stop part 1. There's tons of information left. We're still going to keep continuing to connect Thoth with the influence of Christianity and Islam. You don't want to miss the next video. Just wanted to recap what we've learned so far. I'm just digging through all these documents and sources because we're looking for foundational truths, right? We got to get the babies out. We got to connect the pieces together and see the bigger picture, the puzzle, right? We got to put the puzzle together, right? It's time. It's time. So we know that this ancient deity, right, Thoth, has infiltrated many aspects of the ancient world. As a god, as a messenger, as an angel, as the representation of knowledge, wisdom, magic, science, and alchemy. He was influential in establishing Egypt, or Kemnu, where he has his main cult temple to worship him and Typhoon. That is Kemnu, and it's called Hermopolis, after Hermes, who's also Thoth, right? And we see that we're starting to see that all these mystery schools that were established by this Hellenistic teachings that Thoth was providing and giving to the humans influenced very much so the early stages of Christianity. We haven't got into Islam yet, but we're gonna start seeing that too. So in the next video we are gonna continue. We're gonna talk about Serapis, right, and Apis. We're gonna talk about all different Christian or Catholic holidays or religious days, Christmas, Easter. You know, we're gonna get into Isis, Thoth's wife or daughter. Seems to be Thoth as well, just a different aspect or epithet, as we learned, a descriptive name for Thoth or Hermes. The Hermetic teachings, how they influenced Islam. And if you know, you know. I mean, remember, the Emerald Tablet was first translated or found in Arabic. Okay, so there's a big so Islam plays a large role with this. And if we know what's going on today, we see that Christians and Muslims are fighting. They've been fighting since day one, and we know now. We know it's because of what Thoth and the Luamon and the other gods, the other fallen angels did. They were creating their own religions and providing names to the humans so they can worship them. You know, these false gods. All right, so we're gonna get back into the OHP. It's gonna get very interesting. You're gonna see how Luamon and Thoth look for a king on earth to help them with this Christian religion they're trying, or the Christians, right? Because they're losing battles and stuff. So you're gonna read how they went and chose Constantine, yes, Constantine, who legalized and established the Roman Catholic religion. In the Council of Nicaea, we're gonna talk about all this. We're gonna go into the name of Jesus, what it means. Oh, Jesus, right? Jesus, the symbology, the vibration it carries, where does it come from? All right, and we're gonna also get into Yeshua, right? Because I do know Yeshua did exist and it's recorded in the Old Testament, but Jesus is not him. Apart from these religions that we know, we're also going to see, as well as the different forms that Thoth took, right? We're starting to see a pattern of this bird figure, right? And it's not only in Egypt, it's not only on that side, all right? So we have it on this side of the earth in Americas. I'm going to show that to you too in the next video. You know, we're going to see how he really influenced a lot of things in this ancient world. Hope you guys enjoyed this first part, and hope to see you in the next video. All right, so if you made it this far, you don't want to stay right here. We got a lot more coming. All right, so blessings. Thanks for being here.